You're at a dinner party, surrounded by laughter and chatter, but inside you're dying. Not because you're antisocial, not because you hate people, but because the conversation feels like intellectual starvation. They're talking about the weather, celebrity gossip, the latest Netflix series, and with every word, you feel your soul shrinking. You smile, you nod, you play along, but inside, you're screaming, "Is this really all there is?" If this sounds familiar, if you've ever felt like you're suffocating in a room full of people, having what everyone else considers normal conversation, then you're about to discover something that will change how you see yourself forever. You're not broken. You're not antisocial. You're not too much or too intense. You have what Friedrich Nietzsche called a philosophical temperament, and philosophical minds have a fundamental incompatibility with empty conversations. Today, I'm going to reveal why your discomfort with small talk isn't a character flaw, it's a sign of intellectual evolution. Why your craving for meaningful dialogue isn't pretentious, it's necessary for your mental survival. And why the conversations that energize others literally drain your life force, leaving you exhausted and questioning your place in the world. Nietzsche understood something that most people never grasp. There are fundamentally different types of consciousness, and they require fundamentally different types of intellectual nourishment. What feeds one starves the other. What energizes the conventional mind suffocates the questioning one. And if you're listening to this, chances are you know exactly which type you are. And if these words are hitting something deep inside you, if you're feeling that recognition of finally being understood, then subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. We're creating a space for minds that think beyond the surface, that crave substance over style. In the comments, write these 4 words. I need deeper conversations. Not as a complaint, but as a declaration of your intellectual needs. The first reason philosophical minds hate empty conversations is because they recognize the violence of wasted consciousness. Every moment you spend pretending to be interested in meaningless chatter is a moment stolen from the profound thoughts, the meaningful exchanges, the intellectual discoveries that your mind is desperately craving. Nietzsche experienced this firsthand during his years as a university professor, watching brilliant minds waste their potential on academic small talk and social pleasantries. He wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. And nowhere is this struggle more evident than in social conversations that demand you shrink your intellectual capacity to fit the lowest common denominator. When someone asks, 'How about this weather?' your philosophical mind isn't just hearing a question about meteorology. It's hearing an invitation to intellectual suicide. Your brain, evolved for complex pattern recognition, existential inquiry, and deep analysis, is being asked to operate at the level of a chatbot. It's like asking a concert pianist to play chopsticks for 8 hours straight. This isn't intellectual snobbery. This is intellectual survival. Your mind requires stimulation the way your body requires nutrition. Feed it junk and it starts to wither. Starve it of complexity, depth, and meaning, and it begins to revolt. That restlessness you feel during empty conversations, that's your consciousness fighting for its life. The questioning mind recognizes that every conversation is an opportunity for mutual growth, for the exchange of insights that didn't exist before 2 consciousness met. Trivial dialogue is the intellectual equivalent of eating empty calories. They fill time without providing any real nourishment. When you're forced to engage in superficial dialogue, your mind doesn't just become bored. It becomes actively resistant. You start to feel a physical discomfort, a need to escape, to find something, anything, that will engage your consciousness at the level it was designed to operate. The second reason is that contemplative minds can sense the existential avoidance behind superficial communication. Most people aren't engaging in small talk because they love it. They're hiding behind it because they're terrified of confronting the deeper questions of existence, meaning, and purpose that define human experience. Nietzsche saw this pattern everywhere in 19th century society, what he called the herd mentality, people clustering together in comfortable conformity to avoid the anxiety of individual thought. He observed that the most common lie is that which one tells himself, and nowhere is this more evident than in our collective pretense that weather patterns are more interesting than the patterns of our own consciousness. The weather is safe because it requires no self-examination. Celebrity gossip is comfortable because it keeps attention focused on other people's lives rather than our own choices. Sports scores provide the illusion of engagement without demanding any personal growth or vulnerability. When you engage with someone who has a contemplative nature, the conversation immediately moves toward what matters. What's driving your current decisions? What assumptions are you questioning lately? How has your perspective on life been shifting? These aren't party questions. They're existence questions. But surface-level minds flee from this depth because it exposes their lack of inner development. They haven't spent time examining their own thoughts, questioning their inherited beliefs, or grappling with the fundamental questions that give life meaning. So they retreat into the safety of weather reports and celebrity updates. Your philosophical mind senses this avoidance and reacts with a mixture of frustration and compassion. Frustration because you know the potential for profound connection that's being wasted. Compassion because you recognize that most people are living far below their intellectual capacity, trapped in patterns they don't even recognize. This avoidance creates a tragic cycle. The more people flee from meaningful inquiry, the more they lose their capacity for it. The less they exercise their ability to think critically about existence, the more atrophied these abilities become. Soon, they're not just avoiding philosophical conversation, they're genuinely incapable of it. The third reason analytical minds struggle with empty conversations is because they understand the concept of existential opportunity cost. Every minute spent discussing trivial matters is a minute not spent exploring ideas that could transform your understanding of reality, mortality, purpose, or the human condition. Nietzsche wrote about amor fati, love of fate, which included love of the difficult questions that most people spend their lives avoiding. The analytical mind shares this love affair with challenging ideas, with possibilities that most people never consider, with the endless potential for philosophical discovery. While others see small talk as harmless social lubricant, you experience it as intellectual quicksand. The longer you stay trapped in it, the harder it becomes to escape to the realm of meaningful discourse. Your mind starts to adapt to the lower level of stimulation, and you feel yourself becoming less sharp, less curious, less philosophically alive. This awareness creates urgency around how you spend your conversational energy. You become protective of your mental resources because you understand their value. Just as Nietzsche protected his limited physical energy for his philosophical work, you don't want to waste your cognitive capacity on exchanges that don't expand your understanding of what it means to be human. The questioning mind craves conversations that leave you fundamentally different than when you started. Discussions that challenge your assumptions about reality, introduce perspectives you'd never considered, or reveal previously hidden connections between seemingly unrelated aspects of existence. When someone starts discussing weekend shopping plans for the 5th time in one evening, your mind isn't just bored, it's mourning the lost opportunity for transformation. You begin to see each conversation as a precious resource that could be used for mutual awakening, for the co-creation of insights about existence that neither party could reach alone. When that resource is squandered on empty chatter, it feels like a genuine loss, not just of time, but of potential wisdom. And speaking of transformation, if you're feeling this deep recognition, if you're nodding along thinking, Finally, someone understands. Then I want you to do something right now. In the comments, write, "I choose substance over comfort." This isn't about judging others. It's about claiming your right to intellectual nourishment. It's about acknowledging that your philosophical nature deserves respect, especially from yourself. The fourth reason is that truth-seeking minds are naturally oriented toward authenticity, and empty conversations are often elaborate structures for avoiding genuine human experience. People use small talk to maintain comfortable illusions, to avoid acknowledging difficult realities, to keep relationships at a level where no one has to confront anything challenging about themselves or the world. Nietzsche spent his entire philosophical career dismantling these comfortable illusions. His concept of eternal recurrence, the idea that we should live as if every moment would repeat forever, was designed to force people to confront the authentic weight of their choices rather than hiding behind social conventions and meaningless chatter. Empty conversations are often performance art. Elaborate shows designed to maintain social status, avoid existential anxiety, or create the illusion of connection without the risk of actual vulnerability. People discuss their vacations without mentioning their search for meaning, their purchases without examining their relationship with materialism, their activities without questioning what they're actually seeking through constant busyness. Your truth-seeking mind sees through these performances because it's trained to look for what's beneath the surface. You're not interested in what people did last weekend. You're interested in what they were hoping to find, what they were trying to escape, how their choices reflect their deeper values and fears. This orientation toward authenticity makes small talk feel like a conspiracy of mutual deception. Everyone agrees to pretend that surface-level information is fascinating, that avoiding depth is normal, that existential curiosity is inappropriate for social settings. Your participation feels like betraying your own nature as someone who values truth above comfort. The truth-seeking mind recognizes that authentic inquiry requires courage, vulnerability, and the willingness to be wrong about fundamental assumptions. Empty conversations avoid all of these requirements by staying at a level where nothing real is at stake, where no one has to risk being challenged or changed. The fifth and most profound reason contemplative minds struggle with empty conversations is because they recognize the spiritual dimension of human communication. For Nietzsche, every authentic interaction was an opportunity for what he called self-overcoming. The continuous process of becoming more fully yourself through genuine engagement with life's complexity. When two philosophical minds meet and engage in meaningful conversation, something transformative happens. Ideas emerge that neither person could have reached alone. Insights develop through the creative friction of different perspectives, engaging with life's deepest questions. Both participants leave expanded, energized, fundamentally altered by the encounter. This is communication as spiritual practice, as mutual evolution, as collaborative exploration of what it means to be conscious in an often unconscious world. It's the difference between merely exchanging information and actually communing with another human consciousness about the mystery of existence itself. Empty conversations represent the exact opposite. They're designed to prevent transformation, to maintain the status quo, to ensure that everyone leaves exactly as they arrived. No growth, no challenge, no expansion of understanding. Just the comfortable confirmation that nothing needs to change, nothing needs to be examined, nothing about the human condition needs to be questioned. Your contemplative mind recognizes this spiritual poverty and rebels against it. It knows that human consciousness is capable of so much more than exchanging data about traffic patterns or celebrity relationships. It senses the sacred potential in every meeting of minds and grieves when that potential is wasted on trivial pursuits. This spiritual dimension explains why meaningful conversations energize you while empty ones drain you completely. Authentic communication about life's deeper questions feeds your soul. Superficial chatter starves it. It's not about intelligence or education. It's about the willingness to engage with existence at a level that honors the profound mystery of human consciousness. The philosophical mind understands that every human interaction is an opportunity for mutual awakening, for the sharing of insights about existence that could illuminate some previously dark corner of human experience. When this opportunity is wasted on discussions of weather patterns, it's not just disappointing, it's spiritually tragic. And here's what most people don't understand. Your need for deeper conversation isn't a luxury or a pretentious preference. It's a necessity for psychological survival. Just as your body needs certain nutrients to function properly, your consciousness needs certain types of intellectual and spiritual stimulation to maintain its health and vitality. This is why you feel so drained after social events filled with small talk. It's not social anxiety, it's existential starvation. Your mind has been forced to operate at a fraction of its capacity for hours, pretending to be interested in things that don't engage your deeper nature, participating in exchanges that don't honor your philosophical temperament. The exhaustion you feel afterward isn't from social interaction itself. It's from the enormous energy required to suppress your natural existential curiosity, to perform interest you don't feel, to pretend that shallow engagement satisfies you when every aspect of your consciousness is crying out for substance. Your mind literally becomes depleted from the effort of maintaining a persona that can tolerate intellectual and spiritual emptiness. You return home feeling not refreshed by human connection, but drained by the performance of pretending to be someone who finds fulfillment in meaningless exchanges about nothing that matters. But here's where Nietzsche's wisdom becomes truly transformative. Understanding your nature isn't just about accepting your limitations. It's about claiming your power as someone who thinks differently. When you recognize that your need for meaningful conversation isn't a character flaw, but a sign of philosophical evolution, everything changes. You stop apologizing for being too intense and start appreciating your capacity for depth. You stop forcing yourself into social situations that drain your life force and start seeking environments where your consciousness can thrive. You stop pretending to be interested in things that bore your soul and start being authentic about what actually engages your deepest nature. This doesn't mean becoming antisocial or dismissive of others. It means becoming strategic about how you spend your precious mental energy. It means recognizing that not all conversations are created equal, and some are worth having, while others are better avoided or kept mercifully brief. You start to seek out people who share your hunger for meaningful dialogue about existence, who appreciate depth, who aren't threatened by questions that matter. You create or find communities where philosophical curiosity is valued over social conformity, where authentic expression about life's deeper questions is more important than comfortable agreement about nothing. When you honor your contemplative nature instead of fighting it, you become a beacon for other philosophical minds who have been hiding their existential hunger behind socially acceptable facades. Your authenticity gives them permission to be authentic too. And something beautiful happens when you stop betraying your own nature. You discover that there are others like you, people who have been pretending to enjoy small talk while secretly craving conversations about meaning, purpose, mortality, consciousness, and the deeper questions that define human existence. Your willingness to go beneath the surface creates a gravitational field that attracts other truth seekers. Conversations that once felt impossible in your social circle become not just possible, but inevitable. You become a catalyst for the kind of dialogue about existence that you've always craved. The ripple effects extend far beyond just finding your philosophical tribe. When you stop wasting energy on conversations that don't feed your soul, you have more energy available for the exchanges that do. Your capacity for depth actually increases, when it's not being constantly drained by superficiality. You begin to develop an almost magnetic presence for meaningful conversation. People start coming to you with their real questions about life, their genuine struggles with existence, their authentic curiosities about consciousness and meaning. They sense that you're someone who can handle depth, who won't retreat into comfortable platitudes when confronting life's difficult questions. In the comments, write these words: depth over comfort, not as a judgment of others, but as a commitment to honoring your own philosophical needs. As recognition that your craving for meaningful conversation about existence isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to be cultivated and celebrated. Nietzsche wrote, "The snake which cannot cast its skin has to die. As well the minds which are prevented from changing their opinions, they cease to be mind." Your aversion to empty conversations isn't a sign that you're difficult or antisocial. It's evidence that your mind is alive, growing, evolving, demanding the intellectual and spiritual nutrition it needs to continue developing. The world desperately needs people who refuse to settle for surface-level engagement, who insist on depth even when it's uncomfortable, who model what authentic intellectual and spiritual exchange looks like. Your philosophical mind isn't just a personal gift. It's a social responsibility in a world increasingly dominated by superficiality. Every time you steer a conversation towards something that matters, every time you ask a question about existence that actually matters, every time you refuse to settle for empty chatter about nothing, you're creating space for others to be more authentic, more curious, more alive to the deeper dimensions of human experience. Your refusal to participate in intellectual and spiritual mediocrity becomes a form of leadership. You show others that there's an alternative to the endless cycle of meaningless social interaction. You prove that depth doesn't have to be heavy, that meaningful doesn't have to be depressing, that authentic conversation about life's deeper questions can be both challenging and profoundly joyful. Subscribe if you're ready to embrace your nature as someone who thinks beyond the surface, who craves substance over style, who understands that meaningful conversation about existence is not a luxury, but a necessity for philosophical survival. Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in their hunger for conversations that matter. And most importantly, stop apologizing for needing more from your interactions with other human beings. Your contemplative mind is not a burden, it's a gift. Not just to you, but to everyone brave enough to meet you at the level of authentic engagement, where real connection about life's deeper questions becomes possible. The shallow conversations will always be available, but the profound ones, those are rare, precious, transformative. They only happen when someone like you has the courage to go beneath the surface and invite others to join you in exploring what it actually means to be human. Your mind is not too much. The conversations around you are simply not enough. And recognizing this difference isn't arrogance. It's the first step toward creating the kind of intellectual and spiritual environment where your consciousness can truly flourish, and where you can offer your unique gift of depth to a world desperately in need of more meaningful human connection about the questions that actually matter.